Hi there, welcome to That Board Game Show. My name is James Wood, and today I'm going to show you The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. This is a sequel to The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, which is a standalone game and an expansion. So it can be played with the original, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, or it can be played by itself as a standalone game. I have played, just checking the live chat over here. I have played the Hobbit An Unexpected Journey in a previous live stream. I've left the link down below in the description. And I see we have Sonia Wood, aka my mother, in the live chat saying hi. Hello, Mum. Thanks for joining me. So if you're interested in seeing how The Hobbit plays, I would recommend going back and watching that previous video, because today I'm going to focus on just showing you the Desolation of Smaug and what's different, what's new, what's added. Basically, the games are independent of each other. They do work independently. Let's flip over to this top-down camera. And so in the first game, actually, before I dive in too far, I'm just going to give it a few to join me live on the stream. See if there's any chatter. Not seeing anyone there except Mum so far. So while we wait, let's take a look at what I covered in the previous video. So in the previous video, we played The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, and I played through the first board. So let's show you how this works. We've got this, come on, there we go. This board over here, which is the resource board, where you track the resources you have in the game. And then slide down like so. Excuse me. So I played through this board, the Shire and the Lone Lands, and we managed to complete that board completely, at which point we moved on to board number 2, and this is where I paused the previous live stream, was on board 2, the Misty Mountains, Gollum, Goblins and Wargs. And that last stream had been going quite a while already, so I didn't play through this board as well, partially because the gameplay is very similar. So from one board to another, there's not much of a gameplay change, at least in this first game, The Unexpected Journey. Things change up a little bit more when we get to The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Oop. There we go, in the light. So once we have a few people in the live chat, I'll move on to that one. And you can see here that these are all the components for An Unexpected Journey. And yeah, we covered all of this in that previous video. So you've got your item cards, which you can use to do various things. Basically, we were rolling dice, which are in this adorable little dice bag. So you are rolling dice and assigning them based on their symbols to different actions on these boards up here. Once you've completed all of the actions on a board, you complete that board and you move on. And you will see that this board here, if I can get those back in the bag, this here is board number 2. And then moving on, I'll leave that open because it looks nice. So what you can do is, instead of just playing this game by itself or this game by itself, you can play the two back to back. So you have boards 1 and 2 in The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. And then in The Desolation of Smaug, we have a new resource board with some more gorgeous artwork from the films. And we have board 3, Mirkwood Forest, Spiders and Elves. So when you complete board 2, you can immediately continue on to board 3 if you so choose. And then, if you manage to survive all 3 of those, you can move on to board 4, Laketown and the Lonely Mountain, Orcs and the Dragon. And this board is where things start to change a little bit from that previous playthrough. So, I'm still not seeing anyone in the chat just yet. So, I'll still give it a few more minutes for people to join in before I dive into all the details about what's new and what's different in The Hobbit, the Desolation of Smaug. I am not seeing much activity, so I might need to just leave this one and show you all the details and let you watch it after the fact. So that's what we're going to do. Rather than sitting around waiting for people to show up, I will continue showing you how this works. So, boards 1, 2, and 3. Let's just get them all up here. So we've got board 1, 2, and 3. These 3 all play out virtually the same, whereby you're rolling the dice and you're assigning them to the different tasks on these different locations. And as you complete a board, the boards have these resources at the bottom. So when you start the game, you have starting resources, which you'll put across the top on that resource board. And those will give you various benefits as you go. So you can use them, for instance, Gandalf over here allows you to double all of your white dice. Then when you complete a board, so you see here we've got resources for board 1. So when you complete board 1, any of these that are remaining, and you lose these by not managing to complete various tasks, any of these that you still have when you complete board 1, you will flip over and put at the top on your resource board, and then you can carry those over into boards 2, 3, and 4. And they will give you more benefits, and they also have little point values, 1 point, 2 points, 1 point, etc., basically to score your game. So as you play along, instead of just win-lose, which you can play, you can just play it straight up as a win or lose game. Or if you've played it a few times and you're feeling pretty good at it, you can start tracking your score and try do better each time you play it. So that is boards 1, 2, and 3 are going to all play out very, very similarly. And then, oh goodness, this is a bit of a shambles. And you also have different event decks. Let's just clean this up before I cut over to it. Bear with me. Need but a moment to get this all tidied up, because it is rather a shambles. This was clearly stored vertically and all the bits have fallen all over the place. There we go. Now I can show you. There. Okay. So you see here that we have starting resources. So this is if you're playing this game by itself. When you set up board 3, you'll put these few starting resources at the top of the board, at the top on your resource board. And you'll only place these on board 3 at the bottom to then claim. If you're playing from the base game to this game, then you do not use these starting resources from the Desolation of Smaug. You just carry over any resources you had from boards 1 and 2. Now, I think, is it in board 3 or is it in board 2 that you have the hobbits, not the hobbits, the dwarves. When you have one hobbit, it's called the Hobbit, not the hobbits. So we have Bilbo Baggins, our trusty hobbit, and we also have a full set of character cards from the base game over here. Ooh, my big fat fingers can't quite get out. So these are the ones from the first game, and they are all the same characters with virtually the same effects, but you'll see on the back here, these ones are all black. Whereas, whoopsie, these ones have this picture here of the dwarves floating down the river in their barrels, and then Bilbo is still black. And that's because as you're playing in this one, I forget which one it is, I think it's in board 3, instead of having all of these characters set up at the beginning of the game and distributed amongst the players, like you do in the first game, you're going to give the Hobbit character to one of the players, and that player will be the start player. And then you're going to have the rest of these dwarves in a face-down stack, and at the start of each player's turn, they're going to take one, flip it face up, and now they have that character available to use, representing the barrel chase sequence from the films where the dwarves were all shoved into barrels to escape from the elven kingdom in Mirkwood, not Lothlorien. Getting my Middle-earth forests muddled up. So as they were trundling down the river in their barrels and they came spluttering out of each one, that is simulated by slowly revealing the new characters as you go. And then things change up even more when you get to board 4. So let's go down here. So once you get to board 4, you have got all of your characters available. Some of them will be exhausted, some of them will be ready to go. And then we introduce a couple new elements. You'll see across the bottom here, we do not have a resource track like we do on these other boards. So board 3 here has board 3 resources. So when you complete board 3, any resources remaining here will go up to your resource board. On board 4, instead of a resource board, we have the dragon track. And at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of board 4, which will be halfway through the game, you place this dragon token, this awesome little wooden disc. In fact, let me give you a nice close-up on that. Ooh. So there is the dragon, which I suppose if you have a dragon miniature lying around, you could probably replace it with that. It's single-sided little wooden disc. So that goes on the dragon track over there. And at the end of each player's turn, is it at the end of each player's turn or? No, I have to remember. I think it's at the end of each player's turn. This will move over one space and it will move over again. And where you see these symbols, that's where you can roll dice and assign them to the space to pull the dragon back, representing your fight against it. And anytime you do not manage to cover up one of these objectives on a turn, the dragon will move an additional space. If ever the dragon gets all the way over here to this big fiery symbol, it means he has consumed Laketown and all the dwarves along with it. So you don't want that to happen. That is how you lose the game. One of the ways you lose the game. And that is at the end of board 4 that you'll be dealing with this. There is also an additional die. So let's go back over here. You also get an extra die that becomes available. So you have a new set of dice from this expansion, also in a adorable little bag. Come on. So you have the same set of 4 white dice that you had in the base game. But now you have 2 gold dice. And again, let's get those on a close-up over here. So this one is the same as in the previous game. It's got double symbols and triple symbols. And then you can choose, once you get to the 4th board, you introduce this golden die, which you can use instead of this one. So whenever you have an opportunity to roll a golden die, or you can combine 2. So let me find one of the characters that does that. This is a very hodgepodge thing. Okay, so there we go. There's a good example. So here we have Nori and Dory. And these are both characters that will allow you, using their special ability, to roll the golden die. If you have both of these characters in front of you, you could use both of them and roll both golden dice. Otherwise, if you only have one of them, you then pick which golden die you want to use. And this only applies once you're up on board 4. Because you'll see that this special die here has that symbol, which means to move the dragon back 1 space, thereby buying you time for the end of the game. So that is basically all the additions and changes. And what I could do now is I could play out a couple rounds just to demo it, but I don't know if that's necessary because I did play through the entirety of board 1 in the previous video, and that really does show the gameplay. The gameplay is very much the same. You're rolling your dice, you're assigning them, you're re-rolling, you're using your various characters and their various special abilities. And I think that gives you a pretty good overview of what's new and what's different. If you have any questions in the live chat, please shout out and let me know. If you've played this game, I'd love to hear from you, see what you think of it. I could always play a couple turns just to demo it, rather than just showing all the bits. So I think I might just do that. Let's just do that. Okay, so we'll pretend that we've completed the first one. I'm going to set aside the first game for now. So we're going to close up that board. We're going to close up that board. We're going to close up that board. And we're going to set this aside, like so, out of frame. And let's see now. We'll place board 3 in the middle and our resource board up here. And that goes there, and that goes there. Let's pull that down just a smidge. There we go. Now you can see everything. Then I will need to just double check if I got my overview right. Let's see now. Setup. Setup is a bit different. Objective, cooperative game, deal the 12 company tiles. Okay, so is board 3 the same? Deal the 12 company tiles face down to the players in a 3 or 4 player game, distribute them, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you do actually, I had it slightly wrong. So you distribute the company tiles, these tiles over here. You do distribute these out amongst the players at the beginning of the game. It's when you get to board 4 that they then are in the barrels. Which makes sense, because when they were in Mirkwood, that's when they were captured by the elves and shoved in prison, because the elves and the dwarves did not exactly get along. Okay, and then there's some slight differences in the solo game, all of which I covered in the previous video. So let's see how this one is set up for solo. I think it's a little, I would imagine it's the same. Shuffle the 14 company tiles, place 6 of them into a face-up pool next to the board before dealing the remaining 8 to yourself. Bilbo Baggins may end up in the pool of 6 at the start of the game in the solitaire mode. Although you can kind of tell because he has a different back. So, place 6 of them and then deal the remaining 8 to yourself. So 6 of these characters are not available. These are to be recruited. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are the characters not available to be played with at the start of the game. And then 8 characters go off to this side. There's Mr. Hobbit. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those would be the characters I can play with. And then we would put the elven ring special treasure token over here on the elven ring space. And we would draw event deck 3 for board 3. And we would draw out the dice, and that would be all set to go. And let's just play out a turn or two to demonstrate the game in action, I think. So we'll shuffle out the dice. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to have these quill tokens over here. Over there. I'll pop them like so. That's how we mark when we've completed these. We put our starting resources over here at the top of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4 starting resources. Remember, I would carry over any from the previous boards. I'll put board 3 resources at the bottom of board 3 over here. And this is our ticking clock. If these run out, we lose the game. And then the dragon we do not use until we have completed board 3. And then, on a turn, you are going to roll the dice. You do not get to use the gold dice unless you use a character to give it to you. So let's use Ori, for instance. We'll take him and we put him exhausted over there to indicate that he's been used. Actually, we'll flip him over to show that he's been used, which allows us to roll a gold die. We do not have access to this special one until we get to board 4, so I'll leave that in the box for now. And then we will roll the dice and we will assign them to various places. So with that roll over there, I could put 2 bunny rabbits over there. These ones have to be resolved left to right at the top because these are your travel actions. These ones you can resolve in any order. They just represent various battles and things like free yourself from the spider's web and distract the spiders and defend against the spider attack and answer to the elven king. So these are various events that happened in the story. And I see here I got 2 bunny rabbits there, so I can assign those to that space. I'll put them here. Cross the river into Mirkwood. So that would complete that. And then I've got 3 axes over here, so I could put those over there and complete that mission. I would then take quill markers and I would cover up the 2 spaces I completed, and the dice would be passed over to the next player if I were playing multiplayer. Or I simply take another turn playing solo. If I hadn't managed to cover up either of those, I would have discarded one of these resources back into the box and it would have been gone. If ever you discard the last one, game over, you lose. And one thing I didn't do, which you're supposed to do at the start of your turn, and that is to draw one of these event cards. So you draw an event and it says, find and release the barrels. So now this is an additional quest that gets added to the board over here. And that is now an extra objective that we have to complete in order to win the board and continue on to the next one. And with these special ones that get added, you'll see here we've got this little symbol. That means to retrieve one of these characters from the side here. So these characters are in the reserve. Let's actually move them like so that they're more in screen. So those are the ones that are in reserve and not available to use at the start of the game. At the end of your turn, any characters that you exhausted will flip over onto the reserve side, and now they will be available to re-recruit later on. And that is basically what you're going to be doing. you're going to be rolling the dice over and over and over again until you eventually complete all the objectives, or the resources run out, or on board 4, the dragon gets to the end of the track. So, there you have it. That is the basics. If you want to see a full playthrough, remember, link in description down below to the full playthrough of The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, where I played through board 1. And I'm now checking my live chat again to see if there's anyone hanging out. I will have a sip of my tea out of my trusty Lord of the Rings mug. And this game has been a lot of fun for us. It was actually quite a surprise find. I think it's out of print now, if I'm not mistaken. And really hard to come by. We were very fortunate to be able to pick up both of them at the same time. And we've really, really enjoyed it. It's a great little push your luck dice game where you've got to manage your characters, you've got to roll your dice, you've got to think about the timing of when can you afford to sacrifice a character to get the special ability, like you saw there, just using that one character to roll the gold die. You can think about your timing of that, because if, for instance, you're at the beginning of the game, like here with these 3 bunnies and 3 axes, that's pretty easy to roll. Like you can see here on the white dice, you can quite easily get those results. When you start blocking off more of these, and now you've covered up that, and let's say you've covered up this one as well, and this one here. Now these spaces are much more difficult to solve. So if you've used up all your characters that give you access to this gold die early on, and now you're at this higher level, it's a lot harder to achieve these if you only have your white dice. So now you need to start focusing on these things that are going to give you these refresh symbols to get your characters back. So there's quite a lot to think about, but it's also quite light because you are fated by what the dice roll. The dice can roll well, or the dice can roll badly. It's similar in many ways to the Lord of the Rings, the board game, designed by Reiner Knizia, which these two are as well. I'm not sure if I said that at the beginning. These two are both designed by Reiner Knizia and published by Cryptozoic Entertainment. And he also designed, to my knowledge, at least one of the first popular cooperative games in the Lord of the Rings, the board game, which had a similar principle of playing through the multiple boards. We've done a full Collector's Corner episode on that, talking about the Lord of the Rings, the board game, and we showed the art and all of that. So that one was actually released before the original film trilogy, so that has original art, not at all affected by the films, whereas as you can see with this one, it is drawing from the Hobbit trilogy directed by Peter Jackson. And they're using stills from the films and things. So that might be why the third one never came out. So this was supposed to be a trilogy. We've got game 1, game 2, where you play up to the Desolation of Smaug. And then there was meant to be a third one, which I guess would have been called The Battle of Five Armies, seeing as that's the title of the film. But that one never came out. I can only imagine there was some licensing issue with the IP or something as to why they couldn't get that one together. But as it stands, with just these two, I think they work well. They are a lot of fun played back to back. You can sort of make a day of it. You know, you can play board 1, take a break, you know, have some lunch, come back, play board 2, take a tea break, come back, play board 3, and you can sort of pepper it out throughout the day. We've done that a couple of times. And it's really a good time. It's a nice, easy, interactive, it's a very quick teach. So, if anyone has any questions in the live chat, I keep glancing over there to check if anyone's piping up and saying anything. I am at your disposal to answer any questions you may have. If you'd like to see me play out a few more turns, let me know. Otherwise, I've been going half an hour now. So if you don't have any questions for me or any suggestions, or if you don't let me know in the next couple seconds that you want me to keep playing, I might just wrap this up because you have seen all the basics. I will reset. I'll leave that there just in case I decide to continue playing. But I'm not seeing anyone in the chat, so I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember to spread the joy of tabletop gaming. Bye! Come on. Why is it not working? The joys of live streaming. My keyboard is not behaving itself. Ah, because I changed things. Okay, let's try that again. Bye!